Frederick it's a real honor to have you here today. He is a speaker that I've seen him do a lot of stuff, and he blew me away in the stuff that he was doing. But he was one of Google's first 500 employees, and he became a PPC expert, a pay-per-click expert, which for those of you who are not in marketing, is a critical technology to get people to watch anything, to watch a show, and to just come into your marketing funnel. So it's a pleasure to have you. Thank you for joining us. He actually started another company called Optmyzr, and he'll tell you a little bit about that. And I'm going to sit down, and I'll let you do your thing, and then we'll chat.
I will. Thank you, Claudio. Hello, everyone. Thanks for spending some time with me this afternoon. I promise I will take off the glasses, but Guy was saying there was going to be a bit of show and tell, so these are the Meta AI glasses. So we're going to do a demo, and hopefully she's cooperating. By the way, if I take them off, it takes her a while to warm back up again, so that's why I kept them on. But I have here the program, and I'm going to say, hey, Meta, look and tell me what the 5 o'clock session will be about.
To ask about what you see, start your question with the phrase, hey, Meta, look, and...
Is that not what I said? Hey, Meta, look and tell me what the 5 o'clock session will be about.
The 5 o'clock session will be about advances in AI for marketing, speed and efficiency.
Hey, Meta, look and tell me how many people are in the audience.
There are approximately 30 to 40 people in the audience.
All right. She's looking sort of at the center of the room, but that's not too far off. So anyway, that's a little demo. These are the Ray-Ban glasses. You can pick this up in any store today. And there's no screen in it, but it's just basically visually helping you, and you can ask questions. And last week, I was at my children's school at a TK prep session, and we got all this paperwork about the routines and the schedules. And instead of reading it, I said, hey, Meta, look and tell me what I should know about this, and she summarized it. So really brilliant ways to make your life easier, and I think we're all busy people, whether we're in marketing or in creative. Anything we can do to make our lives easier and free up some time to do the things that actually matter to us get me really, really excited. So yeah, I was at Google back in 2002 when it was about 500 people. I speak Dutch. I'm from Belgium originally, so they needed someone to help translate AdWords back in the day into Dutch. Did that for 10 years, and then there were a lot of problems that Google wasn't solving for marketers, so I decided to start my own company, and that's Optmyzr, a PPC management software. Written a few books, so anyone who does digital marketing, I have some of the books, and I'll be happy to give you a copy and sign it in the lobby after the 6 o'clock keynote. So yeah, let me show you my version of me singing a song. Now, I'm in Hollywood. This is not the highest production value. I do apologize. But the purpose of me showing this is that I made this in about 10 minutes, and I'll prove you that it actually took 10 minutes afterwards, but let's take a look and listen for some of the current lyrics.
Up the day in the Hollywood lights, ready to share insights, man, it's gonna be tight in a crazy world where the tech is the star. Digital marketing's changing, we're raising the bar. ScarJo's mad, chat dripping her voice in this AI game.
So we can, we'll go to the next slide, but basically you heard the ScarJo reference, so that's news from yesterday about ScarJo being upset about her voice being taken, and so I weaved that into this song in about 10 minutes. And I'm able to do something that I'm not creative, I don't have visual skills, but I was able to put this together, and that's really exciting to me. And then I wanted to know what Claudio thought about this, so if we go to the next slide.
Wow, that's amazing.
Thank you, Claudio, that's so cool. But again, I mean, so literally took a photo of Claudio, overlaid it on a little voice track, and then that's what you have. And so again, to prove that I did this, I flew in from San Francisco this morning. I went to the United Lounge at LAX to take a few minutes to update this video, and I basically went to Suno and I said, hey, weave in the ScarJo story. Generated the audio track. I overlaid it in D Studio, which took my Barbie Ken version of myself, which I generated, and makes the lips move and puts the whole thing together, right? And so that's the type of stuff that would not have been possible for a marketer of my skill level even 2 years ago. Again, this is all not perfect, but the point is this is evolving very, very quickly, and play with it now because it's going to become amazingly, amazingly good. Now, I came in from Silicon Valley, so I have a bit of a different perspective from the Hollywood community, obviously, but this is the most excited that I have been in 30 years of living in Silicon Valley. And if you think about Silicon Valley and the waves of innovation that happen, they seem to happen in about 30-year cycles. So in the 1960s, the microchips made the marginal cost of computing come down to zero. So anyone who uses a spreadsheet today, the reason you don't think about the cost of using a spreadsheet is thanks to microprocessors. Computers are basically free. It doesn't cost anything extra to do things with them. And then 30 years later, the internet comes around and the marginal cost of distribution goes to zero. That was a big oh no moment for Hollywood and the entertainment industry. So apologies for that, but things come around and we figure it out and we're all still here. Now, another 30 years later, Gen AI is basically going to take the marginal cost of production approach zero. And that's really amazing, right? Because now we're not just talking about distributing movies or music, but we're actually talking about making this type of stuff. We've had some VCs up here on the stage before, but one of the VCs I was talking to in the Silicon Valley also laid out that future vision of, well, imagine that in 5 years you sit down at your streaming platform of choice and you say, hey, today I feel like an adventure movie and I'd like it to have unicorns and superheroes and a happy ending. And boom, it generates everything for you on the fly. Again, that seems far-fetched today based on where the technology is, but it's evolving so quickly, and that's the eventuality that we all have to be ready for. So that gets me excited because I think we're going to be able to do some really cool things with that. Now, to bring it back to marketers, how does that impact marketers? Well, it changes how the consumers behave, right? And when I showed you the demo with the glasses, I have to ask Meta to look at something, but we're not that far away from having Meta constantly looking. And then anything you see, you can interact with it. It'll have a memory, and you don't necessarily have to go to Google and look at 10 blue links to find the thing that you wanted, because it has more context about what you did in the day. And then on the other side, as marketers, it speeds up what we have to do. Keyword generation, headline descriptions, making visual assets for our ads to promote the TV shows and the movies that we have. All of that is becoming much, much faster. And so let's talk for a minute about ads in an AI world. So there's this whole notion of NORA queries, when there is no one right answer. That's what NORA stands for. And so there are many things you can ask Google where there's not one right answer. The answer depends on what you like, who you are, what you've done in the past. Think about travel, for example. Now, the problem has been, and we didn't think of this as a problem necessarily, but we have to go through the 10 blue links. We have to open a bunch of pages, and these pages are mostly written, you know, for an SEO purpose to rank highly. So actually, if I want to get a recipe, like, recipes are so frustrating. Why do I have to scroll down like 17 pages of the ingredients and their favorite store before I get to the actual instructions of how to cook the thing? Right? So summarization comes in here, and large language models can take all of those top 10 blue results and summarize it for you and give you an answer that's actually much faster, much more useful. And so that's a huge change in how people are going to start interacting with search engines, and that's going to change how Google behaves. And so nowadays you can see the search generative results on Google. I know there's a big backlash against these, and some people are really upset that if you search for my blinkers in my car are a little bit noisy, what can I do about it? It'll tell you to change the blinker fluid. Change the blinker fluid. Any of you who don't know how cars work, there is no fluid in the blinkers. Right, but so that is an actual blue link on Google, and so what the large language model is doing is it's simply taking that answer, weaving it into its narrative, and so yes, the answer is also wrong, but don't blame the large language model, because we've created a world where we're feeding all of this junk into Google for the purpose of getting someone to come to our site. That will have to change, and as marketers, we have to think about how we are prepared for that change. And so here you see some more examples of the Google search generative result, and they also have ads in them. I was at the Google campus yesterday for their Big Dog and Pony annual event, where they rolled out a whole bunch of new ads things, and lots of talk about generative. Now, I showed you the glasses. These are two of the other things. The one in the middle is the humane pin that one of the other speakers talked about. I placed my order 2 months ago. I'm still waiting. By the way, the reviews are really, really, really bad. And the one on the right side, that's the rabbit, the R1 pin. And both of these are the same principle. So these are devices where you no longer need a screen to get help throughout your day. And so you can just simply touch the button, you can speak, it has a camera, it sees your world, and then it uses generative AI to help you with whatever it is you need. Now what's kind of cool about the Humane Pin is actually has a laser projector in it, and if it needs to show you something, you just put your hand out, and it projects in like green letters on your hand what it is that you need to know. But again, because of the laser projector, the thing overheats, and like I don't think it's put anyone on fire yet, but it's still working out the kinks. But again, I'm excited because if you think about it for a second, like the fact that I have to pull out my phone 1,000 times a day to do some random thing, like, is that not friction? Is that not like the worst experience? If you think about the possibility of glasses, of a pin, there's another pin, I didn't put it on here, but it's called Limitless. It's $99, and it just sits on your lapel, and it listens to you all day long, 24/7. And at the end of the day, it says, hey, Fred, here's your action items from the meetings you had today. Here's the things you probably shouldn't forget. That's fantastic. It just absorbs all the audio and gives you what you need to do at the end of that. Okay, so there's the meta demo if I didn't have the actual demo on stage. Okay, so for us as marketers, the big question then is, how will users engage with ads on generative? It took Microsoft about a year after launching their efforts, but they've now come back and they said they engage more with ads. So all of this generative evolution that's happening is actually beneficial to advertisers. And if you think about it, again, put those glasses on, your ads are with you throughout the day. You can now literally ask a question about anything you see. I could be like, right here, hey Meta, tell me where I can buy that jacket. Boom, takes a photo of the jacket and tells me where I can go and buy it. The friction has been removed, so it's more opportunities for marketers to connect with consumers. And so what is our role in the generative world? Well, Sam Altman went on record and he said 95% of marketers will have no job in the next 5 years. Congratulations, marketers in this room. I think you're going to be part of the 5% because you're actually learning about generative. Now, put that into a different perspective. 60% of jobs that existed in the 1940s do not exist today. And it's by job title. So this is based on US Census data. That was an MIT research that was done. But look around. I mean, most people you know have jobs, right? So we just figure out something else to do. Now, what we don't want to end up being is, this was another Sam Altman interview, but he basically said, well, when the car was introduced and the horse-drawn carriages, like the horses, they did something else. I mean, they got new jobs. But think about today, 100 years after the car was invented, horses don't really do a lot, right? So, and that's the risk. We don't want to become those horses, those IKEA meatballs in some circumstances. Ouch. Hey, maybe I should be a comedian. But yeah, so and that's kind of the point. That's why we're learning these things. How do we not become the losers in this scenario? So, so a few things that can help us, I think, is to really deeply understand some of this AI. And so I look at self-driving cars, right? If you think about self-driving cars, they do get into accidents. That doesn't mean self-driving cars are bad. It just means that oftentimes people don't know what the limits of the self-driving technology is. And the marketing hype makes it seem like it's much more than it is in reality. And so there's 5 levels that are defined by the government about the level of self-drivingness in a car. Level 0 means the human does everything. So there's not even a blind spot sensors, there's no backup cameras. You're in charge of everything. Now, most of the cars that we all drive are somewhere between a 0 and a 5, or between a 1 and a 5. Level 5, the car does everything. Now, levels 1 to 4, there is a shared responsibility, and the big question becomes, where do we hand off, right? Because the human and the machine are necessary to cooperate together to get the best results possible and not die in a car wreck. And so the thing is, when it comes to Gen AI and marketing, we don't really know about those levels 1 through 5. We don't define it that way. So we just have to be very careful. We don't end up making stupid mistakes and like generating something that we give to our boss, believing that Gen AI got it right, and then looking like a fool, right? And so what we at Optmyzr think about is, how do we put in place safeguards to help the humans with alerts and audits, right? When it comes to PPC and you're bidding a certain amount of money for a click from Google, well, you can turn it on to automated bidding. But in automated bidding, sometimes it will bid more than the value of the conversion, right? So that makes no sense. You should never bid more than the potential value that you would have gotten back. Now, the other thing, everybody talks about hallucinations in LLMs. and generative AI. But here's an interesting thing. Even if it gets it right today, there's no guarantee it'll get it right tomorrow. And this was a study done out of Stanford about a concept called drift. And so they compared GPT-4 and GPT 3.5 on a simple mathematical question. Over the course of 3 months, GPT-4 went from 84% accurate to 51% accurate. So it actually got worse over time at answering that mathematical question correctly, whereas GPT 3.5 got better. But what's really interesting here too is that even in the best scenario, 84% accuracy on a mathematical question. Well, I don't know about you, but as marketers, like, we tell our bosses about a lot of return on ad spend, cost per acquisition data. And if I don't do that math correctly, I'm going to look like a fool, and I'm going to get replaced by someone who knows how to use AI better. And then being in Hollywood, you know, the writers were sort of revolting. Well, they significantly revolted. They went on strike about Gen AI, and yeah, but then I bring that back to kind of a different perspective, right? Let's not talk about producing that perfect movie script. We're not looking to win Oscars. We're not winning Pulitzer Prizes. As a marketer, oftentimes all you need to do is get that person to feel compelled enough to click on your ad. And that doesn't require the best writing in the world, right? And so again, figuring out where do we put our efforts versus where do we use the machines to make us faster and to help us scale, that's really going to help you win in that future world. And then this is one of my favorite ideas, but it's you're not competing against AI. You are competing against people who figured out how to use AI better than you, right? So learn what it can do, learn how to apply it, and you're going to be in the position to be part of that 5%. Now, I do have a couple of case studies, and I'm happy to talk through those afterwards with anyone who wants, but I know Guy has some questions, so why don't we do those?
Okay. Have a seat. We'll chat together here. All right, Fred, thank you for that. Very entertaining. So as one of the things that I wanted to ask you about, and we'll take some questions for the audience as well. I think we have about 10, 15 minutes here, is with AI, I think you sort of talked about this idea that sometimes perfection is not the goal, right? It's sort of, you're trying to accomplish your marketing goal, whatever that is. One of the things that is exciting to me about AI is, and we talked a little bit about this earlier, is the idea that we are far right now from personalizing down to the individual. And maybe you don't even have to personalize down to the individual, you can just sort of micro-target things. But in a world where we still spend $870 billion in paid media, right? And I know PPC is a big part of that. Is there a way to use AI to create a direct relationship to a customer that doesn't rely as much on paid media, just by serving up content and being able to version that content in a way that's good enough to be able to create a long-standing relationship rather than one that's where you're constantly leasing the eyeballs as opposed to establishing an owned relationship between a company and their customers? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, so the cheapest acquisition you can have is usually to an existing customer. And so it's that whole notion of first-party data and how do you enact on that. It's a really important topic because third-party cookies will at some point go away. Google keeps delaying the date when they're going to pull them out of Google Chrome, but it is going to happen at some point because privacy regulation is just coming, right? So what do you do with first-party data? And then again, you think about the example of the pins or the glasses that I put on. Why not build a deeper relationship with your customer through that? So imagine your Blue Apron. Instead of sending the recipe cards, why can't you put on the glasses, and as the consumer looks at an ingredient and they're confused, they're like, hey, what's the next step? What should I do with this ingredient? IKEA, why don't you have someone wearing glasses as they're building the thing, and you proactively chime in and you're like, hey, I think you put that panel backwards, right? The frustration that you save, the relationship that you build with that consumer is just amazing. And so, but these are whole new ways to think about marketing, right? It's not about the acquisition, it's about sort of that ongoing experience.
Ongoing relationships, absolutely. So, I mean, I don't know, how many people here saw that Sora announcement a few months back where you saw the prompted video, the video prompts from the written prompt, the video from just pure from written prompts. Did people see that? Okay. I was blown away when I saw that, you know, like, okay, woman in Tokyo walking down a wet street, da-da-da. Now, I don't know if that actually was done with that prompt or not, but when I saw that, I thought, oh my God, my old ad agency days, like ad agencies are out of business because it would have taken 6 months to produce that video, right? at one point. Not that they have to be, but and we have talked about, you've been sort of making sure that, you said something really interesting there. Is you're not competing against AI, you're competing against people who have figured out how to use AI. So for the people that are here that are either in marketing or want to have their own business and want to try some things on their own, what tools do you think, besides ChatGPT, but is there anything that people should go home and experiment with in your mind? This would be a great takeaway for people.
Yeah, I mean, so like we've talked a lot about video in these sessions today. One of my favorite tools is Descript. Descript.com. It is a video editor. It's transcript based. By the way, who here has a podcast? Okay, usually like everybody these days needs to have a podcast. That's like a thing now, right? But it's so hard to produce sometimes. And here's a tool, it's Descript. It makes video editing completely seamless. Now, I recently hired a guy onto my team who used to work at Google, and I showed him Descript. And at Google, you have to use Adobe, you have to use all the high-end, like sophisticated tools. They were never allowed to use these new AI tools. And he looks at it, he's like, oh my God, like we would usually spend a whole day just lining up the audio tracks before we'd even start cutting the video. And Descript does that literally for you in like 2 minutes. And his mind was blown. And so then he comes back and he's like, well, that's going to put a lot of people out of jobs. And yes, if that was your billing model as an agency, you're like, well, we're going to spend 20% of our time just aligning the audio, and that's something you got to pay for. Well, your customer's probably going to catch wind of the fact that that doesn't need to take so much time anymore. And really the value that you bring as the human is the creative component. Like, let's come up with that next, let's think as marketers, like what are the human buttons that we can push to compel that consumer to do something, as opposed to aligning the audio or some other tedious task that takes way too much time.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the stubborn part of me still loves copywriting and still loves art direction, right? It's just one of those things. If you grew up looking at the art and science of a good ad, or brilliant copy, or just a really catchy headline, or things like that, I feel like some of that is being eroded. But I still wonder, there's got to be some human genius in putting together the kinds of epic advertising pieces that we've all seen, or like when you think about the Mad Men days of advertising. Now
like
some of that is just gone, right?
Right,
But
and
where
just
do you
do
think
it,
things are going
think
with
different. Like just do it and think different. Those are great slogans, and a machine probably won't come up with that. But then also think about like the fact that, if that example that I gave about Netflix, if that comes true, even at some level, there's the whole long tail of content, right? There's no more tentpole events in television, so a lot of media spend is being pulled away from those types of things. And now you as a marketer have to figure out, well, I still have that budget, where do I put it? And that becomes complicated, right? And so now you can use AI and tools and machine learning to go and find those audiences and place your bets in the right place. But then it also turns into, well, okay, if everybody's like in these different places, and it was called micro genres, right? So do you need to have an ad for every different genre? Well, probably makes sense that different things speak to different people. And that's where we as humans, we just can't keep up, right? So what we can do is we can say, well, we have some brand guidelines, we have some style guidelines, and we can inform the machine about those. But then as you find different pockets of consumers experiencing different things, tweak that to really resonate with them, and use your machine learning brain to use the metrics to do better. And by the way, that's another thing, like there's machine learning, which is really heavy on statistics, and there's generative AI, which is built on top of those statistics, but has more of a creative output. Now, we've been doing for more than 20 years machine learning and finding these pockets of opportunity.
Good. We have about 4 or 5 minutes left. Any questions in the audience that would like to? Yes. And let's see. I'm going to jump down and give a microphone. Oh, actually, here, Nelson. Thank you for your help.
Hi there. Very interesting conversation here. I'm curious to know, though, how this type of advertising in the micro, especially the micro advertising, is going to translate into the gaming space. So like the Roblox, Minecrafts of the world, where you have Disney who is partnering together with Epic Games and having their space in Fortnite. Those are big dollars and those are big collaborations. But I'm curious to know, as we go forward, and especially with the Gen Alpha era, where they are so integrated in that gaming world, and that's how you're going to access them, is to be able to get into that Roblox space and be able to advertise to them. But it needs to be sort of seamless in what you're talking about and be able to create a nugget of what is this 12-year-old into and how can we advertise it to them and how do we still follow the COPA laws?
Yeah.
So I'm curious to know what your thoughts are on that.
No, that's a great question. So Microsoft had an event in Chicago a week ago, and the average age of gamers on Activision is 34 years old, so highly desirable demographic right there. It's about 50-50 split between men and women, so again, fantastic. And they're very engaged with the ads, so when they're given the opportunity to engage with some content in exchange for stuff in the game, they generally will take that. Now, the notion was, well, they're probably taking that offer and then they're canceling a couple of days later. We had one advertiser who's selling online safety tools, and those people that took the offer were still signed up 2 weeks later, so they didn't just come in and cancel it. And I think what's exciting from my perspective is that these platforms like Google, like Microsoft Ads that are self-service, that give us a lot of control, these are the new ways into those advertising channels. So if you want to be on Activision, the Angry Birds, like Microsoft Ads, we can help you with that. Connected TV, it's sort of a similar story. These are things where traditionally you've used media buyers to go talk to the networks at the upfronts. Now you log into your Microsoft Ads account, you're like, Netflix, this show, this audience. The type of stuff you can do on Amazon, it's insane. Like, you can literally be like, find me someone who's got a Toyota in their Amazon garage and who's looking at travel books to Bali and who recently bought new cookware. Because for some reason that tells you something of what they want to buy next. Well, you can do that. You can advertise to them. And again, it's self-service. And you can just play with so many things right now.
Right.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
20.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Frederick.
you. Thank you.
Just one more thing.
Claudio.